Formula One has become an extension of the Saudi authoritarian society, as the FIA has borrowed a leaf from its book. The FIA president, who is from Saudi Arabia, has introduced a gag order to prevent drivers from speaking up against injustice in the organisation or face serious consequences. Before we get to the meat of today's gist, we will first give you a rundown of the many character flaws of Sulayem. Sulayem is obviously not the most likeable character in the sport, but this is okay. After all, Helmut Marko is not very well liked too. But the difference here is that while Helmut is not widely liked, he is clearly highly respected. However, Sulayem is neither well liked nor respected, and we have examples to prove. When Hamilton won his first trophy after a 2-year drought in Silverstone, amidst the fanfare, something strange happened. Hamilton shook and hugged everybody, but when it was Sulayem's turn, the Brit embarrassed him. Sulayem tried to hug Hamilton in front of the camera, but the driver clearly curved him, refusing to even acknowledge his presence. Sulayem also famously fabricated lies against Toto Wolff's wife, accusing her of sharing confidential information with her husband. He based his claim on the fact that one of the other 9 teams had complained against Mercedes. But he was left exposed when all of the teams, including Red Bull, denied it. We had thought it was Horner who reported Susie, but he did not only deny it, he even gave her his vote of confidence. Sulayem had tried to make all the other teams hate Wolff, but it backfired spectacularly. The BBC also confirmed that Sulayem tried to interfere in the Horner sex saga by asking Verstappen to publicly back Horner. Hamilton also famously told the UK Telegraph that he never ever backed Sulayem to become FIA president. Reuters also reported that Sulayem sought to stop the first Las Vegas Grand Prix at the very last moment. But Sulayem has tried to repair his battered public image. Notably, in any trophy presentation after a race, the Arab is always there to share the spotlight with the winners. Over time, he has perfected positioning himself in front of TV cameras that would be beamed over the world. We wouldn't be surprised if he had instructed the media team that his face must be shown in all races. This is a huge contrast to Stefano Domenicali, Formula One president, who does his job without seeing the need to hug the media as such. But what has he done this time around? And why is he being referred to as the dictator? The big boss has swung the gavel. In a lengthy post, he said that henceforth drivers have no right to complain about the steward's decision. Sulayem believes that whatever conclusion a steward makes has to be final, and drivers do not deserve to even rant about it on radio. His argument is based on the fact that because drivers are complaining, this is putting the FIA in a bad light in the face of the public. However, this goes against all the core tenets of a democratic setting. But we acknowledge that freedom of speech is something alien to Sulayem, as he was brought up in an authoritarian society in Saudi Arabia. We do not have anything against Saudi Arabia. If it works for them, then so be it. You can't possibly expect all countries to be democratic after all. Even within the so-called democracy, there is a lot of authoritarianism going on. The difference here is that Sulayem has somehow forgotten that Formula One is not an extension of his household. Sulayem put out an Instagram message that he now wants harsher punishment for drivers and team members who criticize officials. As part of our ongoing fight against online abuse, recent investigations have shown that there is a direct link between negative comments from drivers and team members and increased hate directed towards officials on social media. At the last World Motorsport Council, members approved a change to the definition of misconduct within the ISC following incidents in which high-profile members of our sport have made statements towards officials that incite abuse. This change will ensure further support for the FIA officials and volunteers who dedicate their time to improving our sport, keeping it safe and fair. Our stewards must be prepared to show strength when combating this form of abuse, and they have my full support, and the support of our International Sporting Code when making their decisions. But this statement refuses to answer some important questions. What is classed as a negative comment? When is criticism of a decision allowed and who by? Is there a presumption that stewards are infallible? And lastly, is Sulayem included in this rule? And that last part is important, as Sulayem has had his own fair share of accusations. The BBC had seen a report by an FIA compliance officer where it was alleged that Sulayem had interfered to upturn a 10-second penalty handed to Alonso at 2023 Saudi Arabian GP. This was done to give the Spaniard his 100th career podium. Alonso had finished third but was demoted to fourth by a 10-second post-race penalty for failing to properly serve a 5-second penalty for an error in placing his car on the starting grid. But then, Sulayem was cleared by his own organisation. There is already a lot of censorship of driver radios, and this one is going way too much. We believe emotions run high in this sport and athletes must be allowed to let it out. We also believe that Sulayem is free to introduce whatever gag order he wishes, provided it is not on an international scene. But we would like to hear your opinion. This is Front Lockout, signing off.